Blog Talk Radio.
The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. Sit back, relax, and listen to tonight's show. Let's join our host, Ted Odorico, as he introduces tonight's special guest.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special Golf Talk Live, and I'm your host, Ted Odorico. We're not going to, as you probably gathered from the intro, we are not going to do the Coach's Corner segment tonight, being that it is Halloween. The guys have some other things in plan and in store, so gave them the evening off, as it were. But I was fortunate enough to have a very special guest joining me this evening. I'll tell you a little bit about him in just a moment, and then I'll bring him on. He was actually on the show a number of years back. It's been a little while since he's been on, so I'm excited to get caught up with him and talk about some of the things that he's been doing over the last several years and what he continues to do. But let me tell you a little bit about him first, and then I will bring him out. His name is Bob Forman, and he is a golf fitness professional. He's the former Director of Fitness and Wellness for Congressional Country Club in Bethesda, Maryland. He is internationally known as the leader in the field of golf fitness, and his programs have been recognized 3 years in a row from 2021 to 2023 by the Golf Fitness Association of America. Bob holds a Master of Science degree in exercise physiology and is a certified golf fitness instructor through the Titleist Performance Institute, or TPI for short. He also is a certified personal trainer through the American College of Sports Medicine and also holds certifications in applied functional science as a functional golf specialist through the Gray Institute. He's been working in the fitness and wellness field for over 40 years and brings a table of passion to the game of golf and a genuine desire to help golfers play better, healthier golf. So please welcome to the show my very good friend, golf fitness professional, Bob Forman. To the show.
Thanks, Ted. It's great to be back. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Yeah, it's one of those things I haven't done myself for many years, and hopefully we won't get too many interruptions through the show. Where I am right now, I'm in an area that doesn't get a lot of the kids. They go to the big neighborhoods, so I'm in a pretty good spot. But happy Halloween. So let me. There's so much more I could have read out. I had to actually cut the bio a little bit short because you just have so many different accolades. But let me just point out a couple of other things. You've also, in addition to working with all kinds of players, including golfers from junior levels right up to tour professionals. You've been featured in Golf Week and the Maryland and Carolinas Golf Associated magazines. You've frequently appeared, including on this one over the years, on many Golf Talk radio shows, and you literally travel around the country and offer your golf fitness clinics and just do what you can to help people become healthier and in better shape so they can enjoy this game for many years to come. So lots of good things there. And you had mentioned just before we went live that you're kind of semi-retired now. So you've been doing this for a long time, 40 years, I said, plus, but you kind of cut it back a little bit. And I'm assuming that's to kind of enjoy a little bit of retirement life. Is that?
Yeah, and to try to play more golf. Been helping all these people all these years, and now it's my turn.
Right. It's funny that you say that because I remember several years ago, I don't know if you recall or not, but you were on very early on in the show when I first started out, and this is actually, believe it or not, you might even be shocked by this, next year, meaning 2025, is actually going to be my 13th season for doing this broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing this, for a little while, and I've got another show called The Women of Golf, which I believe you've been on in the past as well with Cindy Miller, who's a great LPGA professional. And that is going into season 12 because I started that a year later. So between the two shows, I've been doing it well over 10 years for both shows, and just keep going. But what's interesting is that the point that I was getting to is when I started doing the program, I had a number of teaching professionals that were much younger and so on and so forth, and really at the beginning of their careers. And it goes to your point that you just made. The rule of thumb is, at least as you get older, you recognize this. You do not get in the golf profession as a professional, whether it's fitness instructor, whether it's a teaching pro or whatever, if you want to play a lot of golf, because you get so busy. If you're any good anyway, if you get so busy that you don't get a chance to play your own game anymore, you're too busy teaching everyone else to have a good time. So I'm 100% behind you. I think it's time for you to get out there and actually enjoy your own game.
And as I'm getting older, I kind of experience what some of the senior golfers are going through. So, I mean, it's kind of good in that regards, in that, I feel the aches and the pains, and so I can relate better to, the people that I work with and when I go around and do the clinics. So it's all good. Yeah,
and that's good. I mean, I think you always have to draw from your experience. It's just like with, from the teaching side, which is what I do and have done for 30 plus years, it's good to have had your own struggles along the way. Obviously, I never played on tour, but I played in some tournaments and things like that over obviously a lot of corporate events. And you start to draw from your own experiences, and then you pass that knowledge on. And then obviously I got certified and whatnot, but I just really draw from my own experiences. And now, as you said, as you get a little bit older, the aches and pains come in. So I can relate to some of those older senior golfers out there. I'm still got a few years before I actually officially a senior. I'm 60, but I'm getting there pretty quick. But it's just amazing, that you do that. So I want to ask you, just right from the get-go, as I mentioned, you had a lot of years that you've been doing this. And really how I want to start this conversation is you recognized very early on that the physical part of the game is very important. And I don't mean just learning how to swing the golf club and that, but actually being in shape. And I don't mean that you have to be muscle bound and so on and so forth, but you recognize that there are certain things that have to be in place if you want to be successful, whether it's out as a tour player or whether it's just a weekend warrior. If you want to play your best golf, you've got to be in good golf shape. So just give us a very quick overview. What do you consider to be a good golf shape? What's sort of the key fundamentals that you look for to see, okay, this person here is in good shape. Yeah, I can work with them and do some other things, but this is the things that I'm looking for to see, can they do or can't they do?
Well, in most sports, and golf is one of those sports that requires what's called the kinetic chain, or in golf they use the word kinematic sequence, and basically that's just a sequence of movements that produce an outcome. And in this case, it's the golfer taking the golf club in hand and swinging it and hit the ball down the fairway. And, you're only as strong as your weakest link in that chain. And like other sports, golf is similar in that kinematic sequence starts from the ground up, and it is initiated by the hips, which is followed by the trunk, which is followed by the arms, and then eventually the golf club itself. And if you have any deficiencies, physical deficiencies in any part of that sequence, that's going to interfere with your swing efficiency, and that's going to rob you of distance, and it's going to, enhance or impact your playing performance. And it can also play a huge role in injury, both acute and chronic. So, having the exercise phys background and having been in the fitness field for a number of years, there's really a strong correlation between the golfer's body and, their playing performance. I mean, granted, the technology is getting better, the clubs are getting better, the balls are getting better. But I always use the analogy, if you buy a used car and it's got, an engine that doesn't work too well, and you put 4 brand new tires on it thinking that it's going to make the car run better, well, you're wrong, because you got to fine-tune that engine. And in golf, you got to fine-tune the mechanism that's swinging the golf club, and that's basically the golfer.
Do you think, Bob, because something that sort of struck me that you had said that, golf sort of works from the ground up. Do you think that a lot of amateur golfers, because their core and maybe their lower body, whether it's their legs, and you're going to get into, I know, some specifics, that when those are not working properly, and I don't mean that they're out of sequence because they don't know what they're doing. I mean because they lack a certain level of fitness in those areas, overcompensate with the upper body, meaning that they're swinging more with their arms and their shoulders as opposed to actually working through a proper sequence. Do you see that as a result, and does that help you pinpoint weaknesses in the lower body?
Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah, if a golfer has, like I say, a weak link in the chain, that's going to impact the entire swing sequence. And, the more common areas that I see deficiencies in, and again, when I talk about deficiencies, I'm talking about muscle tightness, muscle weakness, imbalances in the muscle. You start with the hips. If there's several muscle groups that you want to assess to see whether or not you have a fair degree of range of motion flexibility in those areas. The hamstrings in the back of the thigh, the hip flexors in the front part of the hip, the groin muscles or the adductor muscles, which will help with rotation of the hip. I mean, if you take a look at that area alone, there's a lot of golfers that are deficient or, tight in one or more of those muscle groups. And again, that's the start of that kinetic chain, and that's just going to mess you up, in terms of trying to develop power and distance and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, there, like I say, there is that strong correlation. And, I've been doing this for 16 years now, and, I've been working with a lot of different golfers, all levels, all ages. And to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot of golfers out there that I've run across that are physically well prepared to play this game. And again, as a result, their distance is king. They want more distance. That suffers. The playing performance, as I mentioned, suffers, and the potential for injury goes up.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I see this as well. I see a lot of people, just walking up the range, just going out. Even when I go to hit some balls myself, and I don't try to interfere, with people and what they're doing, even though I'm a teaching professional, unless somebody recognizes me or something and says, hey, I'd really like some help with the game. But I like to observe. I'm an observer, and I like to watch people. And quite often I will see a lot, especially older golfers, but even some younger ones, where they'll kind of stab at the ball. And you can see the tightness, whether it's in their hips or, other, areas as well. And they're kind of stabbing at the golf ball. They're not really making a fluid swing because they either can't take the club back very far, or they're compensating for maybe it could be an injury or a tightness or what have you. So I think you would obviously agree that it's very important to focus on a golfer's fitness. But I think before you actually get into what needs to be done, you first have to isolate what the problem is, right? So how do you do that? Do you do an assessment, and just maybe give us a little bit of an idea of what you do to sort of help identify where those problem areas are?
Yeah, well, I take, some of what TPI, the Tireless Performance Institute, has, taught me, and I've taken some from Gary Gray with the exercise with the golf fitness specialist from the Gray Institute, and kind of combine that along with my own personal experience in working with people with low back injury, for instance, because it is so prevalent in golf. And I put together an assessment package. So the first time I meet with a golfer, I will take them through the assessment, and I will give them a report card. Here are the areas that you need to work on that are deficient, and here are some of the exercises that you want to do to start to correct those deficiencies. I mean, there's such a strong correlation between specific muscle deficiencies and swing faults, specific swing faults, that I can almost predict, what their swing is going to look like based on how they perform during the assessment. So, and then I ask them to bring in a video of their swing, and sure enough, if you have weak glutes, for instance, that could be impacting their early extension in the golf swing, their hips moving forward on the downswing. And, most of the time you look at the video and you say, well, there it is. There's the swing fault, and that's impacting your swing efficiency. So, yeah, it's important to assess so that you have that blueprint as to what this golfer needs to work on, because then you can get very specific and it becomes more time efficient. Because if you can focus on those specific areas and, the golfer does it, because that's the key, is that they have to make sure that they do the exercises, you can get some pretty good results in a fairly short period of time. And that can, like I say, a lot of times they come back and it impacts their game in a very positive way.
And you mentioned about a lot of different physical deficiencies that you come across. What are some of the most common ones? I know you've touched on a couple here, but if you were sort of to put a checklist of what the most common that you see with, and we're talking, let's forget the professionals for now, but your average, amateur golfer that maybe plays, some might play a couple times a year, others might play once a week, maybe even twice a week. What are some of the top, if you were to rank it in order, what would be, say, the top three physical deficiencies that you see when you're doing your assessments? And I know you can't physically show them here, and we'll direct them to your, wherever you want afterwards, if there's some videos and things that you have that you'd like to, show or have people go to for references. Mm-hmm. But what do you do to correct them? And I want to just point this out, because this is, I think, a big mistake that a lot of golfers make, is they just sort of get connected with a personal trainer. But exercises that are more conducive to golf may not necessarily be what you would typically do at a gym. They're more specialized in a lot of cases, not everything, but in a lot of cases. Is that true, number one? And do you try to tailor the type of exercise, or whether it be stretching, or even including weights, that is going to be more conducive to helping their golf game as opposed to just general fitness, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, let's start with the kinetic chain again, all right? So the hips which initiate the downswing. So a lot of people, especially guys, tighten the hamstrings. If you're standing up and you put your feet together, can you bend over and can you touch the floor with your fingertips without bending your knees? If you can't, your hamstrings are tight. So that can impact hip mobility, and that can lead into specific swing faults. Tight hamstrings are also one of the major factors that lead up to back injury. So there's a reason why low back is number one. It's because a lot of guys are walking around with tight hamstrings. Tight hip flexors. Like I say, even though the hip flexors start on your spine, they come through your hip and they attach to the thigh. They're mainly thought of as being in the front part of the hip. If they're tight, they can impact hip mobility. And in many cases, and many women and many younger golfers will tend to be tighter in the hip flexors. That kind of causes the hip to kind of rotate forward, because the tight hip flexors are pulling the hip forward, and that increases the curve in the lower back. So a lot of times you see the S posture, and that can do a job on the lower back. Working up the chain into the trunk, the mid-back, you see a lot of golfers that are tight in the mid-back section. So, you have the cervical spine, you have the thoracic spine, which is your mid-spine, and then you have your lower back, which is the lumbar section. And a lot of people think that rotation in the golf swing comes from the lower back area, and that's not true. The lower back area, that lumbar spine, doesn't really like rotation. It only has about 5 to 10 degrees of rotation. Most rotation needs to come from that mid-back, but you'd be surprised how many people are tight when you assess for mid-back range of motion. So that's another key area that golfers need to work on. Then moving up the chain again into the arms, shoulder mobility. A lot of golfers, you're doing a lot of what's called external shoulder rotation when you go into the backswing for a right-handed golfer on your right shoulder. And then as you come down through the downswing follow-through, you're going to go through external shoulder rotation on the target shoulder, which would be the left shoulder for a right-handed golfer. And if you don't have that mobility, again, like you mentioned, if you can't take the club back very far in your backswing, you're not going to be able to generate you're not going to be able to generate as much club head speed, so that robs you of distance. It can also force you into other things like reverse spine, which screws up your golf swing and, causes you to kind of cast the club out. And you tend to come over the top, and it's a weak slice, and you're just a frustrated golfer. So hip mobility, those specific muscle groups, mid-back range of motion is a big factor. Shoulder mobility is a big factor. And then, the glutes, your butt muscles. Those supply power in the downswing. And a lot of us are weak in the glutes because we sit a lot during the day, and that just, it elongates the glutes, and over time it weakens them. So, unless you're doing specific exercises to stretch the tightness and strengthen the weakness in those muscle groups, your golf game's going to suffer.
Well, and that's what I sort of talked about in the beginning when I said that you can often see when people swing the golf club that if they're deficient in some of the areas that you're mentioning, they'll sort of compensate by, rushing the arm swing, or they'll do something by making an adjustment to their turn or their swing because they either have tight muscles, or maybe there's, in the case of a lower back, maybe their lower back sore, so they have to compensate. So, looking at their videos or seeing them in person swinging gives you a pretty good picture of where those deficiencies are. And once you can identify them, then it's, fairly easy. And obviously there's certain issues where maybe there's more permanent injury. That has to be factored in as well. And those, I'm sure during the assessment when you're talking with them, you're going to identify if there's a long, term issue that they may be dealing with that, there's not really much you can do. Maybe they've had surgeries or things like that may prevent them from doing certain things. But generally, once you do your assessment, you can pretty much identify where the problem areas are and put together a solution for them to be able to correct that. So again, obviously, this is a lot of variables in here, but once you identify the problems, things, and we know what it's like with practice as a teaching professional. I know you give somebody some instruction, you give them some drills, and it's like pulling teeth to get them to go through with it. But if you get them to do what you want them to do, generally, how quickly can you turn things around? If they're doing the exercise that you're asking to and really putting a good effort within reason, typically how quick can they start to see some results?
Well, if they're consistent, and really that's the key with any exercise, no matter what you're exercising for, whether it's general health, whether it's to lose weight, whether it's to improve your golf game, you have to be consistent. And if you're consistent, you can see some changes, and some improvements in a relatively short period of time. I'm talking just a few weeks. But going back to what you said about compensation, and as a teaching pro, like you say, and this is important for teaching pros when they're working with people. Obviously you see your clients may be deficient in range of motion and in strength. So, I mean, and that's where the collaboration between the fitness professional, the golf fitness professional, and the teaching pro can be volumes for that golfer. If you're trying to get them to get into those good hitting positions, but physically they just can't do it because of tight muscles or weakness in the muscle, when they work with a golf fitness professional, who identifies where those areas are and then provides exercises to correct those, I mean, you're going to help that golfer in a relatively short period of time just swing the club better and play better. Now, you also said about, kind of a pre-questionnaire to kind of identify other underlying or other issues that the golfers may have. And I think that's important as well, because, having the background that I have, in exercise physiology, and then also, I've got this exercise medicine credential through the American College of Sports Medicine. So you can do a lot of wellness stuff, with the cardiac and all that. You want to identify those other areas, previous injuries that golfers have had, or current aches and pains, because again, a lot of these deficiencies that pop up are not only impacting the golfer's swing and the golfer's game performance, they also could be factors in the aches and pains that they're experiencing. We talked about low back and how the hamstrings are one of the big muscle groups that you want to focus on for low back stability and low back pain. So, you want to set up a program to help them improve their golf game, but a lot of those same exercises or additional exercises that you could provide to kind of help them alleviate the aches and the pains that they feel is instrumental in getting, helping the golfer feel better and want to get out there and play more golf.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to take a really quick break, Bob, and then I'm going to come back. I got a few more questions for you, and I have a follow-up to what you were just talking about I want to ask you as well. So we'll be right back after a couple of quick messages with my special guest, golf fitness professional Bob Forman. We'll be right back. Do you want to maximize every drive this season? A brand I've worked with for many years helps you do exactly that. Brush Tee is a premium golf tee made from the highest quality plastics for season-lasting performance. Their innovative design provides consistent height, and their fast flex bristles cradle the ball, creating a nearly frictionless impact zone. Visit brushtee.com and use promo code GolfTips to receive a 10% discount. That's brushtee.com, promo code GolfTips to get 10% off your next order.
When it comes to golf, there are two topics that consistently come up: more distance and more energy. But hey, what if you could achieve both? Introducing Victory's carbon fiber insoles, the revolutionary performance insoles designed specifically to help golfers hit longer. Using patented carbon fiber technology, VKs do more than support your feet. Many golfers see a 1 to 2 mile per hour increase in club head speed just by adding Victory insoles to their shoes. So if you want to up your game and feel better after a long day on the course, choose Victory's carbon fiber insoles. Visit Victory.com, that's VKTRY.com, and use code GT20 for 20% off today. This offer is exclusive for listeners of this podcast. Again, visit Victory.com and use code GT20 for 20% off. Order today to start feeling the difference on your next round.
The following ad is sponsored by Golf Tips Magazine.
Are you tired of being short off the tee? And what about those 3 putts? Forget about it. It's time you got serious about your game. Golf Tips, the most in-depth magazine in the industry. For over 30 years, Golf Tips has delivered expert content such as the latest golf instruction from America's top pros, simple to follow practice and game improvement drills, fitness and mental game tips, equipment, training aids, accessory and apparel reviews, golf destinations and travel tips for every budget, and so much more. Don't miss a single issue. Go to golftipsmag.com and subscribe today.
All right. We're back here on Golf Talk Live, and I'm joined by special guest Bob Forman, a golf fitness professional. And we were just talking about sort of the correlation between the teaching professional and obviously a certified golf fitness professional, how they can kind of work together. And I wanted to ask you, Bob, because here's something that I've noticed, and I'm sure you could probably would agree with this. Fortunately, in my profession, on the teaching side of things, too often when a student comes and they're struggling with certain issues, especially some of the younger professionals that maybe haven't been around long enough, maybe don't factor in that there could be some physical deficiencies, try to correct some of the issues with swing changes, and that's not necessarily going to work. And I think what often happens is the student gets, different drills and things to make these changes, and then because of maybe deficiencies or inabilities to perform certain functions for whatever reason, whether it's painful or whether they just don't have the flexibility, tend not to do them. And I'm talking about the swing adjustments because it's just not able to work for them. Because of their, physical deficiency. So they're apt to not do them. And that's a frustration for us. So I think what you were saying is really we need to work hand in hand. So if I'm working with a student and I recognize that, hey, there's something not right here, that's when I need to, say, hey, we need to get in touch with Bob. He's a golf, certified golf fitness professional, and it looks like there could be some deficiencies here. Let's get you through his program to see what the problems are and then go from there. But do you see that a lot in our profession, in the golf industry, where a lot of times the pros will make swing adjustments to compensate when maybe it's just a simple, hey, let's get them stretching or let's get them more flexible in some of the areas that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, definitely. And those compensations, you're asking the body to do something that it's not accustomed to. And in some cases, down the road that could injure the golfer. So, yeah, it is important for the golf professional to work with a golf fitness professional so that you're working both on the skill piece and the physical piece of the player development, wheel to improve that golfer's game. So, yeah, I think that's vital. And in the clubs that I've worked at, it's important to kind of provide education to the teaching professionals as to why the collaboration should take place, because it helps both sides. It helps the teaching professional, it helps the golf fitness professional. I mean, everybody wins, and the golfer benefits, obviously.
Well, and I think from a teaching professional side, I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than teaching somebody today, and they're maybe supposed to come back next week or the week after, and they haven't done anything that you've asked them to do. So you feel like you're starting over again, repeating, last week's lesson or the week before, because they weren't able to do it. And a lot of times people are, are embarrassed. I mean, let's be honest. People are embarrassed. They don't want to say, hey, I've got my back's bothering me or this, and they, make other excuses because they don't want to acknowledge that there may be something wrong. And this brings me to my next question is, we're all getting a little, long in the tooth, meaning we're all getting a little bit older, and there's different things that happen as we get older that, need addressing. So is there something that golfers can do that can help maybe combat? I know we can't stop it completely, but are there some things that we can do as we age that is going to help combat some of the negative effects of aging that ultimately is going to play out in our golf game?
Oh, definitely. There is a physiological reason, or what am I trying to say? There's a good reason why they have senior tees, and it's because of a condition called sarcopenia. Right. Basically, sarcopenia is an inevitable condition where we experience muscle loss as we get older. And as you say, you can't prevent it from happening, but you can slow it down quite a bit. So there's primarily two muscle groups in the body. There's what's called slow twitch muscle fiber and fast twitch muscle fiber. So slow twitch is more oxidative. It's more for endurance events. It's the Thanksgiving's coming up. It's more the dark meat in the turkey because it's in the legs, because turkeys run around all day and stuff like that. And then you have the fast twitch, which is made for quick, explosive movements. So sprinters would have more fast twitch than slow twitch. And in the turkey, that's the white meat. As we get older, and it starts at the prime age of 30, and when you hit 50, you're losing about a half to a pound of muscle a year. And most of that, unfortunately, is the fast twitch muscle fiber, the short, quick, explosive movement. So, boom, there's the golf swing, 1.2, 1.5 seconds. So as we get older, if we are not doing anything to slow that process down, you should move up to the senior tees because you're not going to be able to produce as much power. Now, you can slow that down and you can get some of that muscle fiber back, through strength training. And, obviously any type of strength training is going to benefit if you can mimic the golf swing while you're doing your strength training program. Obviously that's going to enhance, and be better for the golfer. And then once you kind of develop a base of strength, you need to start to incorporate power or speed exercises. So the difference between power and strength is a time element. Strength should be done nice, slow, and steady. Power should be done quickly. And when you do the power exercises, you're going to recruit those faster twitch muscle fibers or whatever fibers you have left. So you're going to train them again to do what they're supposed to do, short, quick, explosive movements. And again, if you can do those power exercises by mimicking the golf swing, man, that's going to be a great program. And so you need to develop that base strength and then at some point add some power exercises so that you can, increase the recruitment of or better recruit those faster twitch muscle fibers. Then the other part is as we get older, we tend to get tighter. Muscles tighten naturally. That's their nature if you don't stretch. If you're sitting around all day, you put yourself in a position where you shorten certain muscles like the hamstrings in the back of the leg, like the hip flexors, because they're in a shortened position, so they tighten. And so that's going to start kind of, as we discussed, robbing your ability to kind of really perform that kinetic chain. So stretching, if nothing else, I tell golfers, stretch, and you will be amazed if you can get into a regular stretching program. I teach 2 stretching classes, one at the club that I belong to, and then I still go back to the club, the Peninsula Club where I just retired from, and teach stretching classes because it's so important to do, not only on the golf course, but just activities of daily living and to prevent those aches and pains that people experience. So strength program, power exercises for the fast twitch muscle fibers, that's going to help you get your power back in your golf swing. Stretching, just to kind of reduce the tightness that we develop. And power is a byproduct of strength and flexibility. So that's going to help with you generating more power, more distance.
What's interesting, as I listen to you, I'm thinking about how many golfers that I've talked to over the years that always seem to fall back to, if I could just get the right clubs, if I could just, get that new driver, that's going to get me that extra distance. And really, there are so many things that you're talking about here tonight that if they would just spend a little bit of time and effort into working through some of the programs that you put together over the years, they would see that extra distance, or at the very least, they would be able to maintain a certain level of play that they would enjoy, as opposed to steadily. I mean, I've seen players that, they always talk, well, I'd like to just shoot my age. But I know a lot of players that are very senior and are phenomenal players. And I say, what's your secret? And it's just like what you're talking about here is they stay in shape, they get out, they exercise, they're not just loafing around all the time. And, some of them are, maybe playing with a little bit newer equipment, but most of them are playing with equipment they've had for several years. And it's just because they've gotten themselves in good shape. And then you see other players that are, every couple of years they're upgrading their driver thinking, maybe I'll get an extra 10 or 15 yards and really seeing nothing. And there's other factors. I mean, obviously there's, the swing that has to be looked at in that as well. But a lot of it is because they're dealing with physical deficiencies, as you've noted.
Right.
So I want to ask, right? So I want to ask you this question, and that is, once you do your assessment, once you find the really weak areas and kind of get them to a baseline, so you've worked with them, you've got them to a baseline, is there then sort of a maintenance program, maybe that's not the right word, but a program or a series of things that they can be doing on a regular basis? So obviously if they're, dealing with, bad hamstrings or hip flexors or whatever, you need to address those specifically. But once you kind of get them into a generally decent shape, are there exercise and things that they can do moving forward that's going to help really maintain? I mean, again, as we get older, you're going to lose certain things that can't be stopped. But is there sort of a general or average maintenance program once you get to that level that they can do that moving forward that's going to help, keep them relatively consistent?
Oh, definitely. I mean, and again, stretching. I can't overstate how important stretching is. And like I say, that alone will help golfers in terms of their playing performance. The strength component, you definitely want to stick with that, not only for your golf game, but, for your balance and for you being able to get through the day, walking upstairs, picking up packages, all that kind of stuff. So the strength is important to do. And the other thing, too, muscle kind of drives your metabolism. So, if you're looking to lose some weight, the fact that we're losing muscle as we get older, our metabolism slows down. We're not burning as many calories during the day at rest. So that's going to help with that as well. And then the power exercises, if you can incorporate those a couple of days a week to, again, recruit those faster twitch muscle fibers that you're going to use while you're playing the game. You just need to be consistent with that, and you don't have to go crazy. If you can do a 3-day-a-week program, and if you can throw a cardio component in there, that's great, but you don't necessarily have to. 20, 25 minutes of strength training, stretching. The key is that you're doing something. And for a lot of golfers, there's a lot of stuff online, a lot of people kind of promoting this exercise and that exercise, and a lot of those exercises are advanced, where if I look at that, I would say, geez, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hurt myself. So you really got to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. So you definitely want to kind of start basic. That's why it's important to work with somebody who really has the background so that they can, and get to know you, the golfer, so that they can start you off on a base program and progress you through it safely and keep, injury to a low risk. So, those are crucial things to do.
Probably the number one in today's market worst phrase I think a golf professional could ever hear, especially with a new student, is I was watching a YouTube video. If they start off with that, right away you're going to be spending the first 15 minutes, dissecting this. And this is the problem. And I'm not knocking. Lots of professionals do things online. There's nothing wrong with having that. But you're right. You have to be cautious. And in the teaching side, just as it is with your side, there's certainly some good stuff out there. Don't get me wrong. But you really need to work with somebody. And then if they've got their own things and they want to, for convenience, as we're all pressed for time. Time seems to be no friend to anybody these days. We're all, lacking time. And so, I understand, or distance, you've got, you're working maybe with a professional and they're in another state. So sometimes it's easier to exchange videos and that sort of thing to help them along. But unfortunately, there is a lot of information out there that either is not accurate because the people pushing it are not, certified professionals, or it may be a more advanced approach. What might be for, Bryson DeChambeau is not going to be a good group of exercise for some guy that's 75 years old living down in the villages of Florida. You know, because you're talking different body types, you're talking different age groups. There's all kinds of factors. So you have to be really careful of that. So you actually sort of answered my question I was about to ask you, and that was really, if you spend a certain amount of time each week, but it's not just a matter of the time, it's effective. So it's like effective practice in the golf game. We want people to practice their golf game, but we want them to do it effectively. So if they're spending, 20 to 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week, and they're doing the proper exercise, doing them properly, then they're going to stay in pretty decent shape, right?
Yeah. Yep. And you bring up a good point, about especially today, and we all seem to be busy and stuff like that. And you just got to get into it, and you got to start slow and progress, but you don't have to go nuts with it. Consistency is the key. And again, that's another thing I just can't overstate to a lot of folks, because if the longer the workout, the more likelihood that they're going to put it off. I can't fit it in today, I'll do it tomorrow or something like that. But yeah. I remember a few years back, who was it? I think it was Golf Digest magazine. It had a front cover with Dustin Johnson standing on top of a stability ball, swinging a golf club, and he was talking about his fitness.
Right.
And I was like, how's that going to promote the average golfer to get into fitness? They're going to be like, I'm not doing that.
Well, and also, too, I mean, even the young guys out there, the young and up, people just getting into golf that are in their 20s are looking at that and saying, I'm not going to do that. I'll break my neck. It just does. and again, I don't really follow a lot of that stuff, obviously. It's the same thing when I see a lot of the professionals, and I'm talking about not teaching, but tour professionals, doing a lot of swing tips and that, I'm not knocking it. I think it's interesting and certainly something to look at. But again, we're all different. We're built differently. So for me to adopt, a swing like Freddie Couples, that may not work for me. His rhythm or learning angles is a more, smoother. I might have a quicker, pace to my swing. So, sometimes you have to be careful of that. But yeah, you've got to really, and that's why I think it's important, going back to what we talked about a little bit ago, is I think it's a great idea for the teaching pro and the golf fitness instructors, professionals, to get together. If you've got somebody, one of each or a couple of each or whatever at, especially some of the bigger courses, and work together and say, hey, you know what? I think I can put together a program that you can introduce to your players. I'll do the assessments, give them some feedback, and then we can work together, and I can give you or give them the exercise that are going to help in those areas. And then that way you're not having to tweak it. And also what I think you'll find is when people come back and start working on their swing, the problems, the deficiencies they had in their golf swing, a lot of them go away, right? Mm-hmm. Because now they're able to body functions properly, and they're able to suddenly take that club a little further back and able to accelerate a little bit faster because they've taken away the physical deficiencies in their body. Is that fairly accurate?
Definitely. Definitely. Yep.
And, I think that this is something that I would like, and I mean, there's a lot of them that are doing that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just suggesting they don't, but I think one of the things that I see, and I've seen a number of professionals, and I'm not knocking it, but I think everybody should stick in their own lane. I think sometimes what I see is a lot of the, especially the younger ones, a lot of the golfing, and I'm talking about teaching professionals, are now taking all the certifications for fitness, and they're trying to do both. And I think sometimes it may work on rare occasions, but you have to decide, are you going to be a fitness instructor, a professional, or are you going to be a swing coach or, a golf coach or what have you? And I think that sometimes, people go out and they get all these certifications in a lot of different varieties, but maybe they're really only good in one. And the others, it's nice to have that label after your name. But for somebody like yourself, you really gravitated to the fitness side of the game. That doesn't mean you couldn't maybe do something else, but you're really focusing on the fitness side of things, and that's important. as well as the teaching side and in the golf swing itself. But I think sometimes when you're trying to incorporate too many things in your repertoire, that sometimes doesn't always work out for the student's advantage either. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I know some teaching professionals that have gone through the TPI certifications and do
right. As do I.
Fairly good job. Yeah, doing a fairly good job of working with the golfers and stuff like that. You know, and it's kind of basic and stuff like kind of identifying where they may have some muscle deficiencies and stuff like that. But the knowledge of the exercises, you know, it might be a little lacking. But I think the best case scenario, and I know clubs that have really incorporated that collaboration between the fitness and the teaching side, I mean, have really excelled, and, you know, the image of the club just is enhanced because of the fact that the members appreciate that the fact that the club is providing this service to me as a member to help me improve my game and keep me healthy. So, yeah, I think it's best case scenario is you get somebody with the physiology background, you know, movement science, and combine that with the teaching professional who knows everything about the golf and the skills and the equipment. Man, that is a terrific program.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at. And again, I know a bunch of people that are taking the TPI, and I'm not, you know, it's great. I think it's good if you want to have that knowledge to help you be able to see things. But I worry, you know, and I guess this was the point I was getting at, is I worry a little bit too much that some of these guys and gals are doing that, and then they're getting, you know, they're not really in depth into the fitness side of it. They just have, you know, sometimes a little knowledge can be dangerous, and you know, sometimes you get in that, and it might be great to identify it. But I like the scenario where you've got, you know, two individuals. You've got one that really has gone in depth, specialized in the, you know, the physiology of the golf swing and the physical part of the body, and then you've got somebody that has the swing mechanics, how you have to put all that together, and then the two of them work together in unison. I think that provides a better service. And again, I'm not knocking anybody for, you know, for wanting to, you know, better their thing, but I think that works out better, and I think that's something that you probably agree a little bit with as well. You know, one thing that you mentioned earlier, I just want to go back to, and this is something that I agree. I don't know how many times I show up at the golf course and watch guys getting ready, and, you know, they're out in the practice tee and they're hitting some drives and they're doing this and do that. I almost never, and I mean never, see anybody stretching anymore. How much, if you're getting ready to go out and play, how much time, obviously you're not going to do a full routine, but to get something out of it, what would you recommend before you're getting ready? Let's say you show up 30 minutes before you're going to go out and maybe do some putts and maybe hit a few balls. How much time should you stretch before you get out on the first tee?
Well, it's a case of doing it before and during. I mean, you know, golf is a 4 or 5 hour round, and if you're sitting in your car waiting to tee on a specific tee or waiting in the fairway to hit your next shot, great opportunities to just do a little bit of stretching to keep loose, especially now as we're kind of getting into the colder weather. But, you know, when I go to a golf course, I'll do a combination of both static, you know, stretch and hold stretches, hamstrings, hip flexors, mid-back stretches, and then I'll do some dynamic stretching as well where there's movement involved. So I'll take, you know, a good 5 to 10 minutes before I get onto the driving range and then hit some golf balls. And then, again, during the round, while you're kind of waiting to hit your next shot, there's a bunch of different stretches you can do with the golf cart, you know, using that as kind of your stretching cage and stuff to stay loose throughout the round. Yeah. And then, I mean, if you do get a chance to stretch after the round, I mean, you know, it's always better to stretch when the body's a little warmed up and the blood is flowing, right? Because you tend to be a little bit more pliable and enhance flexibility a little bit better. But definitely a few minutes before you kind of get out there, and then during the round, try to stay limber.
Do you think, Bob, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Do you think that walking, playing was better for the golfer than the golf. And I understand why they do what they're doing. They're obviously, it's a numbers game. But do you think that golfers, in some respect, have lost? I mean, there's a myriad of positives, obviously, to walking besides just the physical. I mean, it's a get an opportunity to appreciate nature a little bit more, and it's a better pace. But do you think that golfers have suffered a little bit because a lot of courses don't allow walking anymore? I mean, some are coming back now, but do you think with this, influx of golf carts and things like that, that maybe there's missed opportunities for the golfer because they're not walking the 18 holes or 9 holes or whatever? Do you think that has also added to, the lack of fitness a little bit?
Well, hopefully people are doing something during the day, whether it's walking the golf course or going to a fitness center and doing some exercise to get their cardio in. I mean, when you walk the golf course, you're going to kind of stay a little bit more loose because you're getting the blood flowing a little bit more as opposed to sitting in a cart driving around. The muscles again in the legs and the hips will stay a little bit looser because you're obviously using those muscles while you're walking the golf course. So yeah, there definitely are some benefits. You'll burn a few more calories than you will sitting in the golf course as well. So yeah, I mean, if you get a chance, it's probably a good choice. But again, if you're taking a cart and you're doing something after the round or before the round or on your off days, that's the key.
I remember growing up and playing golf. Of course, we certainly had golf carts, but more people were able to walk, and my friends and I would have no problem walking 18 holes, and some cases we'd even do 36 if we felt so inclined. And but with the onslaught of courses and especially resorts wanting to keep those numbers up and putting you out in golf carts, I remember a few years ago going to Pinehurst and walking number 2 and number 4 and all that. And, I hadn't done something like that in a little while, and I'll tell you, I felt it. I mean, I was tired by the time I got home, back to the hotel, and I just thought, man, right, yeah. What I'm talking about?
Golf takes a toll on the body. I mean, when you don't play, for instance, like the people in the colder weather, when they don't play and then the spring rolls around and you go out and you swing the club the first few times, I'm sure they feel it a day or two afterwards. But, I mean, that's another thing in terms of, maintaining an exercise program is to help reduce, those aches and pains after you do play.
Let's talk as we get ready to wrap up here in a few moments. 2 points I want to get you to talk a little bit about. First one is you mentioned about obviously people that are, going to be, hibernating a little bit this winter, maybe don't have the opportunity to come down to Florida or somewhere in a warmer climate to be able to play through the winter months. And they're going to be, in their cave, as it were, watching other sport. What can they do so that when they do come out in the spring and they're ready to, pick up that golf club, they're obviously not going to be able to pick up exactly where they left off at the end of the season, but they're going to be in better shape. So are there things that they can do, especially if they don't have an indoor facility around that they can go and warm up? Are there things that they can do, maybe even at home, just to keep them active enough and keep them, flexible enough, whatever, so that when they're coming out, they're not getting all seized up or stiff? What are some things that they could do maybe in the winter months?
Well, the wintertime is probably one of the best times of year to improve your golf game because playing golf can develop muscle imbalances in the body because it's a one-sided repetitive activity. So ideally, for every stroke you take from the right side, you should be taking one from the left side to keep symmetry within the body. But that's not going to happen. So, playing golf, you're using a specific set of muscle groups and a specific movement pattern. So you're going to develop some tightness in certain muscle groups and some weakness in some muscle groups. So the off season is a great time to kind of work on those deficiencies that we talked about over the past hour. And, if I may be able to plug my book,
Go ahead.
all the stuff we talked about, I've got a book called Functional Golf Fitness Training. It's available through the book patch, or you can go to my website. I've got an educational website that I put articles on every month talking about various topics we talked about tonight, and that is at Golf Fit Carolina. That's one F and one T, so it's GOLFIT Carolina.com. And if they just stick with it, doing, again, stretching. If they can get some, if they can get some inexpensive exercise tubing, if they don't have equipment, that's effective in working the the strength component. And you can even use that tubing to develop some power exercises as well. So if they can develop a program, hook up with somebody who can help them develop a program and maintain it during the winter, they're going to be good to go once the weather gets better.
Yeah, and just one last question, Bob, that I wanted to ask, and just, again, sort of maybe you can just shed a little bit of light here. How important is nutrition as well? I know you're not, we don't have time to get into the whole thing, but nutrition also plays a role. I mean, what you're putting in your body is obviously going to help in the process as well. So if you're eating a lot of junk and you're eating maybe, a couple of dogs at the turn, and drinking a couple of beers throughout the 18 holes, that's probably not going to help you a lot. But is that important as well? What we're fueling our body with, is that going to help the round as well? And again, I'm not asking that they have to get on some serious nutrition routine, but that's obviously going to play a role as well, correct?
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you can kind of get into, water consumption is important, making sure you're drinking enough water. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people don't drink enough water, and many of us are walking around in semi-states of dehydration, which can impact the way you feel. But definitely, a good balance between the complex carbohydrates, which are the good carbohydrates, the fruits, the vegetables, the legumes and stuff like that, versus the simple carbohydrates, which are more your sugar type cereals and donuts and all that kind of stuff, along with some protein and a little bit of fat. I'm not a dietitian, but if they can stick to something like that on a consistent basis, and every once in a while you can kind of fall off the wagon and go out and have an ice cream sundae and stuff like that. I wouldn't be the first to admit that I don't do that. But
right.
And the alcohol consumption, obviously everything in moderation in regards to that. But again, really, I think a lot of people, if they were to really think about how much water they consume during the day, a lot of them would probably say not enough. So I think that's one simple thing that a lot of people can do to make them feel better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. For those listeners, again, very quickly, if you're interested in maybe getting a copy of Bob's book, Functional Golf Fitness Training, you can go to the bookpatch.com and just search it there, and it'll come up, and it's available. And I strongly urge you to go and get yourself a copy because you want to, as we're getting into the later part of the season, for some of you out there that are going to be up north or northeast, northwest in cooler climates, or you need to find some ways to keep yourself active enough so that when you're going to be in better shape to get a good start to the season. And then also, if you want to get in touch with Bob, or you just want to find out some helpful tips, you can visit his website, golffitcarolina.com, and that's GOLFIT Carolina.com, and you can get some information there as well. And I think you can probably reach out through that website as well if you want to get in touch with Bob. But Bob, it's always interesting to have. I really enjoyed having you on tonight. It's been a few years. I'm going to have to make a point to get you to clear your schedule for next year and come back many more times. We may even do something. We'll talk about that later, but maybe do a fitness segment on the program to see if we can help some of the audience members out there as well. But I want to thank you for joining me on Golf Talk Live. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoyed and I always learn something when you come on the show about my own fitness. So I need to get back and cracking, as it were. So, but thank you for coming on.
Well, that's good. Well, I appreciate it. I enjoy helping people play better, healthier golf, and That's why I enjoy kind of traveling around and doing the golf fitness clinics at clubs and stuff like that. So, if anybody has any questions, comments, help, they can also email me at bob@golffitcarolina.com.
Perfect. So no excuses out there. You got a way to contact him, Bob, at golffitcarolina.com. Visit the website, golffitcarolina.com, and also to get a copy of his book, Functional Golf Fitness Training, the bookpatch.com. Bob, thank you very much. Again, happy Halloween. Have a great evening and great weekend. And I look forward to having you come back on the show again. And I'll be in touch.
All right, Ted. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. You have a great evening. All right, that was Bob Forman, golf fitness professional. And just a really great guy, very knowledgeable. Been doing this for many, many years. He's been in the fitness and wellness field, as he mentioned, for over 40 years. So he's got a lot of knowledge, and always happy to help the folks that really want to improve on their game. And just so many great points that he made tonight. So if you missed our show, if you're tuning in late, not to worry. If you go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, which is our main website, and you just scroll down to the on-demand section, tonight's show will be there in its entirety in the recorded version. Of course, we're live right now. And you can go back and listen as many times as you want. There's other episodes there as well in the archives, but tonight's broadcast will be there momentarily. Just give it a few minutes to populate, and it will be there right at the very top of the on-demand section. So just go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, and all of the information is there. I want to thank again Bob Forman for joining me tonight. Enjoy, as I said, having him on the show, and just a great guy, and just a wealth of knowledge in the fitness, golf fitness side of things. So on that note, I will see you next week right here on Golf Talk Live. Be safe, everybody. If you're out there with young ones trick-or-treating, just be careful. Be mindful of cars and things like that, and be safe. But thank you. I'll see you next time here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. Ted would like to thank this evening's special guest for joining him on the show. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. You can also listen to Golf Talk Live on any of these social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. Be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, send an email to Ted at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.